Hey, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining us and welcome to another Sales Hacker webinar. I'm Colin Campbell, the Director of Marketing at Sales Hacker, and today I am lucky enough to be joined again by Josh Braun. Josh, thanks for being here, man.
It's like you've won the lottery 2 days in a row. Like I'm on twice. Like, dude, what are you drinking? What's in your tea? What's going on?
It's just chamomile. I don't know what to tell you. Nothing special.
Are we ready to go?
Yeah. Before we jump in, I just want to do 2 things for the people here. So first of all, so everybody remembers, we're talking about how to diffuse objections today. We're going deeper than we have before. So we want to run this like a workshop. So first of all, at the bottom of your screen, look at the Q&A box and then actually click it. Don't just look at it. Open that thing up and start now. Put in objections that you get a lot, or maybe not even the most common objections, just some tricky ones that you want help working around. The benefit of joining live with us is that you can actually communicate with us and you actually get answers to your questions from Josh. So we are recording this and we'll send out the recording later, but you lucky people that join the live version can actually get a little extra. So if you have objections, pop them in there now. I see some coming in. Thank you. Those are great. Those are great. Keep them coming. We want all the rare ones. We want the tricky ones. I want to try to stump Josh today.
I love it. Stump Josh. We are taking requests.
Yeah, we're taking requests. All right. And so with that, I mean, Josh has some fantastic insights to share here. So I'm going to let him get to it. We'll come back to some of these objections you guys are all sharing in a little bit.
Let's do it. Some people have already thought that they've seen this, right? You were in part 1 and you're like, Josh, I've seen this already. Welcome back. We are going to do a little refresher, even if you've seen it already, because you can always go deeper into any topic. As evidenced by this guy, you may have seen this book, Andy Riley, The Little Fluffy Rabbits Who Just Don't Want to Live Anymore. So this is actually a book of bunny suicides. He could have stopped at volume 1. This is just a picture from volume 1, but he went deeper because you can always think of other creative ways to have bunnies commit suicides, like this and like this and like this. For all you people that are in their 20s, that is what's called a CD-ROM. Google it after the workshop. So today we're going to cover 3 things. 1, why do people raise objections in the first place? 2, how to view an objection when you hear it. And number 3, what I call know your lines, where we're going to get into specific phraseology and a framework that's going to teach you how to diffuse any objection so that you are not thrown off balance when you hear one. So why do people bring up objections? Well, it's simple, right? Anyone recognize this scene from your mall? The mall kiosk person standing in front of the Dead Sea Stuff booth. If you were to walk by there and she were to say, can I ask you a question? If you're like me, you'd probably look the other way and run away as fast as you can because you don't want to be sold. And yet, if you compare that to the very famous Dollar Shave Club video, the one on the right, you'll watch a 2-minute. I mean, it's the same thing, right? We're both selling a product, but what's the difference? The one on the left feels more salesy, like I'm trying to part you with your money that you worked hard for in exchange for some stuff that I want to rub on your hands that you probably don't need. And the person on the right, although he's pitching a product, he's doing it in a way that entertains, doesn't feel so salesy. So the fear that people have when they give you an objection is actually caused by salespeople, rightfully so. We've all experienced salespeople that have made us feel manipulated. The telemarketer, the Comcast retention rep that wouldn't let us cancel our service. So it's natural when people put up their guards to push back because we are perceived like those salespeople that they've had a problem with. And when we start to fight and overcome, we are in that same bucket, and that's what creates the tension.
Yeah, this is a lot of that people have been trained, but they have so many interactions with salespeople, like in a mall, on the phone, at work, everywhere, that they are now trained to like instantly put up their guard.
Totally, and we should expect that. And we've done this to ourselves as a profession. And so what we're going to talk about today is an approach that reduces that pressure for you and for your prospect. Because when we try to overcome and we try to persuade and we try to convince, we are put in that same bucket as the mall kiosk person. So what you're going to learn today is a radically different approach for being able to diffuse objections in a very calm, cool, and collected way so that you're not thrown off balance. The 3 reasons why salespeople create fear, this is the first one. So when I often ask this at workshops, I'll say, hey, what's your goal when responding to objections? And these are the answers that I typically get. Well, I want to, Josh, it's obvious. I want to overcome the objection. I want to book a meeting. I want to move the sale forward. Do you see anything in common with this mindset, like the crazy mall kiosk person? We're both trying to move things forward. And where we get into trouble is when the salesperson is trying to move faster than the prospect. That's what creates the pressure. You're trying to get me to move faster than I'm ready to go.
I love that insight about speed, because the way I've always been thinking about it is it's always about like those 3 common answers. Like why
so this whole approach is not based on the sales process. This whole approach is based on how people buy and why they don't buy. And we're going to get into that a little bit later on in the presentation. But when we start to move faster than the prospect, and you have probably been in this situation before where you've just said a bunch of things or objected in some way because you didn't know any other way out. So you just say something just to move away from the prospect, from the salesperson. When you start to move faster too quick, it's the same thing as saying, can I meet your parents when you're on the first date having coffee? It's just weird and awkward. And so people just say whatever they need to say to move away from you. Second reason why we create pressure is this example from Comcast. So what I'm going to play for you is a small clip of a person that is trying to cancel their internet service.
Oh, I love this.
And you're going to hear a retention specialist trying to overcome the objection. And when it's done, I'm going to talk a little bit about what happened and why this is so common. The retention specialist has been trained, like most salespeople have been trained, to overcome the objection. So let's listen to this.
We'd like to disconnect. We'd like to disconnect, please.
Okay, so why is it that you don't want the faster speed? Help me understand why you don't want faster internet.
Help me understand why you can't just disconnect us.
Because my job is to have a conversation with you about this. I mean, keeping your service, about finding out why it is that you're looking to cancel the service. I mean, being that we are the #1 provider of internet and TV service in the entire country. Okay, why is it that you're not wanting to have the #1 rated internet service, #1 rated TV service available?
I'm declining to state we're switching providers. Can you please go to the next question?
Okay, so what is it about us towns that's making you want to change to them?
I'm declining to state, can you please go to the next question so we can cancel our service?
So when we get into trouble here, right? Because clearly this guy wanted to cancel. It wasn't an objection. It's what I call the effing truth. Sometimes it's not an objection. Sometimes the guy just wanted to cancel. We don't have to be a rocket scientist. We don't need a framework here. We can hear what I call the oomph and the energy behind this person's voice. And when we start to push, when we treat the truth like an objection, we get into a lot of trouble and we cause a lot of anxiety and people want to move away from us. So if you think about objections and you think you're overcoming and you're starting to push, and it's really the truth, like, dude, I really want to cancel. I want to cancel. I want to cancel. I want to cancel. And you're still trying to overcome. You are going to sound like the Comcast retention specialist.
Yeah.
Fortunately, on this webinar, you're going to learn a different approach. Colin?
What,
yeah, I thought you were chiming in. Yeah. So it's just fighting, right? People want to stay. People want to stay consistent with what they said, right? So if someone said, you know, you can go anywhere you want, but you can't go to sushi. And I said, I want to go to sushi. You're going to stay consistent with that. We want to stay consistent with the things that we said. So it's very hard to have someone change their mind. It's like arguing with an angry teenager. It's not going to work. There's not going to be a scenario where you're going to start to persuade someone and they're going to say, you know what, I never thought of it that way. Just frustrates people. Third reason is this. That's my barbecue. And only one side of the barbecue works. Sometimes when people object, it's because they're making progress with their barbecue. Even though only one side of my barbecue works, I'm only making salmon for my wife and I. So I don't have a need to upgrade my grill at this point, but I might one day. And where we get into trouble is where we think we can actually create urgency. We can't. We can shine a light on things and say things like, hey, you might have a propane leak, gas leak. Would you mind if I check that out for you? And if you have a leak, it could give you a flare up and burn your face, but we can't create it. And if someone is not motivated, which happens a lot, and we have to know the questions to ask, we have to get out. And we do what the guys did. When you're not motivated, we put you in a little track where they gave me great videos every month about how to be a better griller. If you guys go on my feed, all of those posts that you see are ways in which I'm nurturing people that are not having a strong enough desire yet. Mm-hmm. So rather than following up in 6 months or 7 months to say, are you ready to buy? Or having it slip through the cracks, in outreach, you just drag them into a sequence, and every month they get a great video that not just makes them smarter, but also makes them feel good because you're delivering the content in a way that makes them smile. That's why I produce the I Teach My Wife sales videos. And I can't tell you the amount of times when I get on a call with someone and they're saying, dude, your wife is awesome. Can you bring her in? And I bring her in. It's like they're meeting a movie star because it's not just the content, it's how you're delivering it. So I can't stress this enough. The amount of money that's wasted on people that aren't ready, and we just ignore them. Don't ignore them. Don't put them in a track of googly gook. Take the time to craft something in the style of what the barbecue guys are doing, something in the style of what I'm doing, so that when someone's not ready, you can just bow out gracefully and say, hey, got these great videos of how do you make you a better griller. Would you mind if I put them in there? We could chat, at a later time. Sure. And then you're out because your most valuable resource is your time. And where we get into trouble is we think that every objection is someone that's ready to buy now, and it's not the case.
Yeah, exactly. I know we're going to come back to this because I've taken note of a bunch of the objections. By the way, thank you everybody for giving us some objections. We're going to try to stump Josh later. So if you joined a little late, you still have time to put in objections. I'm going to try to stump Josh and see if there's anything he can't respond to.
Let's do it.
But I can tell you right now, a lot of the ones we received, like I'm reading them and I'm just seeing, I think we're going to come back to that. It's not about that they're making an excuse. It's just about that they really maybe are fine with what they have.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Everyone's doing fine. This is what I call the struggleometer or the desire. I'm not ready to buy a new barbecue grill until my wife says, you know what? We have to cook for 10. And now I can't make progress anymore. And now I'm in the red zone. Or I get a call from the rep that has me look at my propane leak and says it is in fact leaking. And if you light the grill, it's going to flare up. Then he shows me a picture of a burnt face. I'm in the red zone. Yeah. But from an outbound perspective, most of the people you're talking to are in the green, yellow, or orange zone. And where we get into trouble is that we think they're in the red zone. I do this at my workshops. Raise your hand if you're buying a house, a couple hundred people. 3 or 4 will raise their hand. Raise your hand if you're going to buy a house one day. Every hand shoots up. When we're doing outbound, we have to be cognizant of where they are in this meter. This is beyond the scope of this webinar, but Colin, we can certainly do another one. In about 7 or 8 minutes on a discovery call, you can quickly find out where someone is on the struggleometer and get out quickly. Not in a bad way, but in a time-saving way. It's better for you. It's better for the prospect. And you put them in one of those great, awesome nurture tracks that you really took the time to be able to craft. Again, similar to what you see guys on my post and on my feed. There's the graphic. That's what you're dealing about. So oftentimes you'll hear an objection, and we got this one, like, how do I create our urgency? How do I get this to be a priority? You don't. You can shine a light on stuff, but if there's no motivation, and we'll talk a lot about this, if they're in the green zone, we get out. And there's ways to ask questions and with finesse and in a nice way to know where someone is. And if we have time, maybe at the end, we can talk a little bit about this, but it is a great topic for another webinar, which is to know what zone they're in. Okay. So you're assuming that they're in the red zone. So what we need is a way out. Let's actually talk about it. We don't want to be associated with Dead Sea stuff. How? Here's what we're going to cover next: how to view objections, and then role playing. The mindset shift that you have to have, and this is super tough, man, is to let go of making the sale for a moment. Let go of making the sale. Let go of trying to move things forward and change your intent from overcoming to understanding. So when we hear an objection, what we don't want to ever do is try to be like the Comcast retention specialist. We want to understand it first, because usually the objection has a lot of different layers underneath it. When someone's objection is price, or can I speak to a reference, there might be some other things going on. And so if we try to address the objection at face value, we're not doing our prospects, we're doing our prospects a disservice. So the truth is this, just in case we don't know what it looks like, because I think salespeople have a hard time with it. Like that Comcast retention specialist. For the 9th time, I want to cancel my internet service. That's what I call the truth. How do I know that? Because I have freaking common sense. I mean, come on. The energy is up. The oomph is up. I'm not going to go asking him for the 10th time.
And you could argue that he was trying to learn the truth, that he was trying to just empathize. He was asking questions. He was just trying to understand. But I don't think, it's like the tone, the way he was approaching the questions. He's pointing out, we're the number one provider. We're the number one provider. If he had stopped for a second, gotten the phone call, oh, you want to cancel? Okay. Why? What happened?
Exactly. And by the way, dude, you can't tell anyone you're number one. You're biased.
Right.
Your customers can tell people you're number one, but you can't say you're the number one provider. You can't tell anyone you're the best or you're the number one provider.
Yeah.
Colin, if I told you I'm the best sales trainer and coach, you'd be like, yeah, right. But if you went on my feed and you saw some of the testimonials that you'll see on my feed, that's more credible. And here's the other tell with the truth, that number 9. Like when someone says for the 9th time, that's the truth, guys. I'm sorry. We gotta let it go. So what could be false? Potentially false. You hear something like send me some information. That could be one of those objections, and we're going to get to this, where people are naturally putting up their guard because they're starting to feel the pressure and they just need something to say to get you off the phone. And you can waste a lot of time sending information. We know we don't really want to send information unless in fact it is the truth. And we're going to talk about a framework for how to get to it. Where we get into trouble is we take this at face value. Oh my God, they want a reference? This sale's going to close. I can't wait. Colin, ask me right now. We're just going to go freestyle. Ask me right now for a reference. Go ahead.
Hey, Josh, this all sounds great, but I need a reference. Do you have one?
That sounds fantastic. Colin, how many would you like?
3, I guess.
Fantastic. I will set that up tomorrow. Let's assume that you talked to them by 2:00 and you liked everything you heard. Would you be ready to move forward this week and buy?
Oh, well, I don't know.
Okay. And end of scene.
Yeah.
We're going to get into this a little bit more, but what we just demonstrated right there, and Colin and I did not rehearse this, is that's not the truth. So we're going to learn a framework that's going to allow you to get to the truth so you can best service your prospect and be cognizant of your time. Just because a prospect asks us to do something doesn't mean we have to do it. We are not little children reporting to mommy or daddy. We are adults. And so this approach is going to allow us to have an adult to adult conversation where we're on this equal playing field. Let's go on. Let's get to it. Objections. They're either true or false. Examples of true. They have what I call oomph, right? The Comcast one had oomph. There was reasons. Hey, Josh, I can't talk. You caught me at a terrible time. I thought you were someone else. I'm running to a meeting with my boss, and if I'm late, she'll kill me. I just can't talk right now, not even for a second. If you start to try to overcome this, you sound like the Comcast retention specialist. I was doing a coaching call yesterday with a client. We were doing some role play, and he did his opener, and I said, dude, I can't talk right now. I'm going to the hospital. And he said, how about next Wednesday at 3:00? And I stopped the role play, and I said, let's get out of our sales world for a second. Let's pretend we're a people. And I were to say that to you in the gym, what would you say? He's like, well, I'd ask, like, is everything okay? I go, exactly. Why not ask that of your prospect? Like, let's not change our behavior. If someone says I got to go to the hospital, or I'm running into a meeting, or I got to go to the police station, have a little empathy. Prospects don't always lie. They're not all evil. You don't have to have 9 no's to get to a yes. I'm not feeling well. Can you call me back? That's true, probably. We're not going to say, I'm not feeling well. But how about next Wednesday? What we are going to say is, oh my gosh, is everything okay? Is it your throat? Is it your tummy? What's going on with you? Truths have what I call oomph. There's reasons behind it. Examples of falses. These are things that people are just saying because they're afraid you're trying to get them to move faster than they want to move. I don't have time. Send me a proposal. Guys, if anyone's doing this, if anyone is This is peppy. I'm going to do 10 seconds on this. If your prospect is saying, send me a proposal, and you're sending proposals, please book a meeting with me tonight, and we need to talk, because I don't want you doing that anymore. I don't have budget. I need some referrals. These are all things, referrals or references, that are false, potentially. Send me some information. Your price is too high. We're going to talk about that one today. So remember the goal. Is the objection true or is it false? Let's get into phraseology. Then we're going to take some role plays. This is where we want to spend the bulk of our time. So phraseology, words, what to say. When I do workshops, I hold up math multiplication cards. 5 times 3, everyone shouts out 15, 5 times 5, 25. Send me some information. Deer in the headlights. Why? You know it's coming. Same 6 to 10 objections are always going to come. You should have them rolling off the top of your tongue. And when you do, you don't come across as a meek, weak person. When you buy something from someone, they want to buy from someone who they feel knows how to take them from point A to point B. I recently hired a triathlon coach. He doesn't ask me what I want to work out on today. He tells me. When you are confident and when you have these under your tongue, you come across as being cool, calm, and collected, and people are attracted to that. Remember, adult to adult. Many of the people that I hear responding to objections are way down below. They're like the child, and you will get obliterated. So we want to be equal. We want to be confident. And when you're confident and you have memorized this stuff, you will come across as someone who someone wants to be around. There is a disclaimer, however. Although I have the words on the screen and I have an offer at the end that shows you a course that I developed for only $49 that goes through 30 of these objections, talk tracks, videos, tonality, all the logic flows. The disclaimer is this: I don't want you memorizing my words. I'm very different than you. I'm an old Jewish guy that lives in Boca Raton, Florida. Okay, so I need you to take the ideas here and make them your own so they're comfortable and feel good on your soul. So if you see this, Josh, I would never ask that. That's okay. What would you ask instead of that? Keeping the same intent. All right, let's get into it. Let's try some. How to get to the truth. Your price is too high. So this is one that came through in one of the people that people wanted us to address. And so let's get to it. Let's actually talk a little bit about what this could be. It could be this. Now, we're not saying what it is yet. We're saying it could be. When someone says your price is too high, it could be that they don't have the money. Now, I'm very different than I think a lot of sales professionals out there. I don't subscribe to the belief that just because you have a $3 million ROI, that someone's going to give you $1 million. They just might not have $1 million. But why wouldn't they? My thing's worth $3 million because they don't have $1 million. So if someone were to call me and say, Josh, I can make you 500 if you give us 200 cash, I'm like, I don't have 200 cash. I don't have 200 cash. I've spent it all on my expensive triathlon bikes. I just don't have the money. So it's possible that they don't have the money. Here's what else is possible. It's possible that they perceive that the benefits, the thing that they'll get from it, smaller than the big pile of money. The next thing is they're not in the red zone, right? They're in the green, yellow, or orange zone, and they're using price as a way to just say something because they don't know what else to say. So if we're going to ask some questions with finesse to know that they're in the green zone and there's no motivation, there's nothing to talk about except for this. Hey man, can I send you a book? We got a great course, a nurture track. We send videos from time to time on how to be a better girl. Can I put you in that? Sure. And then what's great about that is it's off your plate. And in 3 or 4 months, I just had this happen today. I had 3 responses from people in the nurture track. Josh, I'm ready to talk. And now usually when they come back, they're in the red zone pretty much all the time, which is great because it's not taking up my time. Other reason why people might tell you that you are too high is that there's no perceived difference between what you're doing and something else that they are looking for. And if in fact you learn that somebody else is doing something that can help them get the job done the exact same way for less money, you should absolutely say, I think you should go with them. Wouldn't you want to? Like, why would you want someone to spend more money on something that they could spend less money on and get the exact same, get the job done? This is not about your functionality. It doesn't matter that you have 50 things and they only have 4, because those 4 things might be the only things that the prospect needs to get their job done. I don't need a thing to make soup on the side of my grill because I don't like soup on the side of my grill. I just like to make salmon, man. Again, in case you forgot, I'm an old Jewish guy from Boca. Thank you. I'm here all week. You can't pay for it all at once, right? So it's $50,000, but I don't have it all at once. maybe I could break it up. So this is what the truth could be. Now, the question is, we have to use a technique that actually gets the truth so that we know how to have a conversation in an adult to adult way. There's going to be different talk tracks depending on where we are. What most salespeople do when they hear the price isn't too much is they start to justify in some way. Well, aren't you going to make $4 million? Isn't it worth $2 million to you? Yeah, can you? I don't think so. I just don't have the money. Can I get off the phone? Those arguments don't work, again, because they might not have desire. You can't make people buy for your reasons. People buy for their reasons and on their timeline, not yours. So let's actually go through how we would handle this. So step number one, when you hear your price is too high, just try to do this. This is really hard for most people. It's very hard for me, as you can tell by this webinar that I'm stomping all over Colin every time he speaks. I'm working on this myself. Is when someone talks and says something, just take 2 beats after they're done talking. Now practice this. You'll see this is amazing. When anyone talks in your life, whether it's your spouse, significant other, friend, prospect, let 2 seconds of silence go by and you'll notice something really interesting happens. People will just keep talking. I was negotiating for some jewelry for my wife not too long ago for anniversary. And the necklace was, I think it was like $2,000 or something like that, $2,000. And the lady said, the price is $2,000. And what I did is said nothing. And then she said, but we can, do it for 16. So the price came down $4 by just not saying anything. And so silence is really important because sometimes prospects will keep talking. So don't discount that. Count to 3. This is what that looks like in case you don't know. Hey, your price is too high. Just like that. And it's really tough to not have that reaction. It's very hard. This is still something I'm working on in all candor. I've been working on this for 10 years and I still do it. I still am thinking what I want to say next, especially when I'm in a conversation with someone, instead of just thinking about what the person's saying. This is kind of getting into listening skills, which is another webinar. But to the extent that you can just slow yourself down and start to practice deliberately outside of the sales environment, when you hear something, just let some space go before you open your mouth. Okay. Step number 2 is this.
No, Josh.
Yeah.
Sorry to interject.
Wait, not to interrupt you. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
You're talking about like the feeling of being calm, the feeling of like letting go of the sale. And one of the things that struck me is earlier you mentioned that you have a nurture stream, right? So you have every time you talk to somebody, you have a plan B ready, right? And I think that's key. So, I don't know if everybody who's doing their own prospecting or every SDR in the world is responsible for their nurture stream. But if you feel like you don't have a plan B, as a marketer, my recommendation would be talk to your marketing team about what the plan B is for the call, because they should be able to help you design something, whether it comes from you or from them or whatever, but you should feel comfortable about that there's a backup to that and that you don't have to get every meeting on every call.
I'm glad you brought this up because I'm going to respectfully disagree, because when we start to involve marketing, we're making someone else responsible for something and we don't control the destiny. So guys, congratulations. You can make your own drip track. I do it. I'm not a marketer. All you have to do is this: turn on your camera and figure out what's one question that your prospects typically ask. What's one topic they might want to be smarter about? Google it. Turn on your camera like I do on my posts and just talk about it for a minute. And congratulations, you've created touch 1. Figure out what other people are learning about and then take your spin on it. Steal like an artist. None of the topics I'm talking about in my nurture track, by the way, my nurture track are my posts on LinkedIn. And they're also in my email. But my posts are my nurture track. They show up on people's feeds. So again, I'm getting into another webinar on how I drive business. But guys, these concepts I'm talking about, these aren't like brand new things that I thought about. Zig Ziglar's been talking about this stuff. All the greats. But what you do is you put a fresh spin on it. Use new analogies. You use your own personality, because it's not just the drip track and the information. It's the personality. I teach my wife sales thing. Those concepts could be presented in a very dry, bland way, but we've punched them up and spiced them up. So congratulations, you should do this as an SDR. And guess what's going to happen? When you do this and you start posting this stuff on your feed, people will be attracted to you because most prospects will look at you before they talk to you. And right now, your profile probably says something like this: I made the President's Club. I'm crushing quota. No prospect wants to do business with a quota-crushing salesperson. When you look at my feed, they see all sorts of interesting pieces of content that makes them smile, makes them laugh, and maybe makes them a little bit smarter. So you don't need marketing to do this. Just turn on your camera. Make 2 of these, make 3, make 1. Send me one, I'll chime in. So and again, I'm just being respectful with Colin, but I'm not a fan of we have to wait for other people to do stuff. I want to take control and responsibility for it. I want to have my own little nurture track. It doesn't have to be complicated. You can do it this afternoon before you go home. All right, step 2. So diffuse. When we hear an objection, our reaction is going to be to overcome. Maybe you've been taught that. So what we need is a tool to help us not do that. And I call them diffusers, or to diffuse. So what a diffuse is it's a statement that's going to just slow you down. So your price is too high. These are some things that can you send me some information? Of course. Your price is too high. Can you give me some references? That's not a problem. I'd be happy to. Your price is too high. You're glad you asked. I'm glad you asked for references. So diffusers calm you down. Here's some common ones. That's not a problem. I'm glad you brought that up. I don't know. So Josh, why should I choose you over all the sales trainers? I don't know. I'm not sure if you should at this point. Can you please call me back another time? Sure, that's okay. You're right. We can be perceived as being high when you first hear our price. I'd be happy to send you that information. I love sending information. You're right. So your price is too high. A diffuser might be, we can be perceived as being pricey in the beginning. So these diffusers, you'll commit to memory, depending on the objection. Why are you better? I don't know. Can you send me some information? Sure, love sending information. Can I speak to some references? Be happy to. We commit these to memory so that when we hear an objection, it's the first thing that comes out of our mouth. And man, when you start doing this, all of a sudden, the prospect doesn't expect it, because what they're expecting to hear is the Comcast retention specialist or the mall kiosk person that wants to start to overcome it. So check out these diffusers. Josh, I could never say any of these. Great. Think of your own. These are just some examples. So far we have your price is too high, we have quiet, and we have this. This is one that I use a lot. Someone says your price is too high. The first thing out of my mouth, my diffuser is this. Do you have a Groupon? Now, I'd say about 80% of the time, this gets a chuckle. And the reason I'm doing this is very calculated. There's a lot of psychology behind this, but if you can make people laugh and they're having a good time, it is the best diffuser in the world. Take a chance on it. Put yourself out there. For some reason, when I listen to sales calls, we have this sales voice. We talk in weird ways. We use language that we would never use. If you're saying end-to-end anything, end-to-end platform, like we don't use these words when we get out of the sales world. So we're going to have to loosen up. That's going to be the name of my new book. It's just called Loosen Up. And so, hey, you have a Groupon? It was just that you have the clipper. It was like we were running 40 off last week. Did you get that thing from Bed Bath & Beyond? So we just kind of loosen it up a little bit, right? And then after we get the chuckle, we'll say this. You're right. We can be perceived as being pricey. Now, your prospects are not going to expect this. They're going to expect you to start to overcome. So automatically, you're going to create a yoga studio rather than CrossFit.
I love that analogy.
Thank you. I just made that up, Colin. That's for you especially. I'm not going to share that with any other. That's it.
Yeah. There you have it, people. Sales Hacker exclusive.
Sales Hacker exclusive. Number 3, this is called golden lasso. We want to isolate the truth, or isolate. We want to understand what the truth is. So this is a real magic question. Your price is too high. Count to 3. We can be perceived as high in the beginning. Hey, other than price, assuming that we were able to come to terms on price, is there anything else preventing you from moving forward? And in my business, it's today. But if you have a longer sales cycle, this quarter. Now let's just stop here and really think about this. A lot of salespeople, when I listen to sales calls, they just never ask for the order. They never ask for the sale. Essentially what I'm asking for here is the sale. And I'm trying to figure out, are they ready to buy if we can get the price? Usually when I ask this question for my own business, they start to talk about all the other things that are going to prevent them from moving forward. I got to talk to my boss. This isn't a priority. So it really has nothing to do with price. These isolate questions are really the key and the guts of this approach to help you get to the truth. Because what you'll generally hear is a bunch of other stuff that has nothing to do with price. Remember, guys, you are in business to make money this quarter. And if they are not ready to buy this quarter or this month or this week, depending on your sales cycle, it's not a problem, but I want you to get out and put them in the nurture track. And if you don't have one, stop crying about it. Stop asking marketing about it. Marketing's busy. Just go make one, fire up your webcam and record a couple of questions. Look at my post for inspiration. Look at Dale Dupree's post for inspiration. There's lots of Ryan O'Hara's posts for inspiration, Sales Hackers post for inspiration, and just go ahead and create your nurture track. Step number 3, this is what you'll hear. Well, no, we can't move forward because I need to talk to my boss. We need a few weeks. We'll be ready after our new VP of sales will join. This isn't very high on our priority list. Again, the struggleometer. So the isolation question is really key, right? If in fact, it's like if this, then that. Right? If I was able to take that away. So with the references one that we did earlier, if the references checked out and you love them, would you be ready to buy next week? Or if you think that's too strong of language for you, you can say something like this. If the reference is checked out and you liked everything you heard, what would happen next? And then just shut your mouth. What you're typically going to hear is a lot of truth that actually has nothing to do with the objection that they said. Then we'll respond, right? So, Josh, it is really, just the price. We're ready to move forward. I'm the person that can make the decision, and we want to do it this week because we've been struggling with this for 5 months, and we are at our wits' end. Ah, okay. So, Colin, how do you recommend we resolve this? Now, what will happen a lot of times when you ask this is they'll be like, well, we just can't afford the $50,000, all up front. In which I could say, hey, maybe we could be open to splitting up the payments. Would that be something you're open to? Maybe we could take $20,000 now and $30,000 later. So now when we know the actual objection is in fact a number, we can actually start to brainstorm together and make your prospect a part of it. Oftentimes they'll have some really great ideas. So I love that question in the response section. Once again, we're down the track of it is in fact the money, because if it's the boss, we're not having this conversation. It's a different track, which again is in the Know Your Lines course and book. We don't have time for that one at this moment, but we could talk about it when we do the take requests. Let's actually try another one. This isn't a priority for us right now. This is one that actually came through, someone requested.
Yep.
You guys probably already know how I'm going to handle this, right? My barbecue isn't a priority right now. There's some questions we can ask with finesse, but it's possible that when it's not a priority, we could say something like this. Oh, tell me, what are you guys working on? So it sounds like, before I get off the phone, it sounds like if I were to able to show you a grill that could work on both sides for the price that you would like, it doesn't sound like something you'd want to move forward with, right? No, Josh, not at all. It's just we got 5 other things on our list. This is really down low, and we're fine for right now. It's just not something we want to be able to do. That to me is the truth. That to me is someone in the yellow zone that isn't struggling enough, doesn't have enough desire, despite some of the questions that I'm asking. And what I do is I say, no problem. Hey, from time to time, send you some videos about how to make you a better griller, steaks, potatoes, salmon. You want to check that out? Sure. And I get out. Where we get into trouble is when we try to make something a priority and we try to create the urgency. You can't create the urgency. You can shine a light on stuff. It's different. Hey, Josh, get that this is not a priority right now, but have you ever had a propane leak gas test? No. What is that? Well, sometimes when you're leaking, it can cause a flare-up when you light it with a match. Would you like us to check that out for you? Sure. Oh my God, you do have a propane leak. Would you like to buy a grill now? Is it more of a priority? It is. Notice what I did. I didn't try to convince. I shined a light. I found a problem. I found a gap by asking questions to be able to see if the prospect lights up or if I can get that needle to move. We can't force the priority. We can just ask questions and shine a light to see if the light bulb goes on in our prospect's head. We can't turn that light on for them. We can just shine the light and see if they want to turn it on themselves.
Hey, Josh.
Yeah.
Something I used to do, I want to get your feedback on this. Something I used to do when I hear the objection, it's not a priority for us right now. I like to help people. So my first question was always, oh, what are you working on? What's taking up your time?
Absolutely.
And when I heard that, my instinct was to take it further and try to help them with that. So, and a lot of times their problem had nothing to do with me. And most of the time I just ended up making an introduction to somebody I thought could help.
Freaking awesome. Right? What are you working on? Maybe I have some resources or people in my network that could be of assistance. And
Yeah.
if in fact the stuff is as high priority and you're down on the list, you're in the green zone, Colin's approach is absolutely right, because who are they going to be attracted to when and if they ever start to struggle with the grill? You. I love that. Love it, love it, love it. And when you don't do that, you come across as someone that had a bad first impression, and that sticks with you. And they're going to want less of you. All right, so we're taking requests. Eagles, Fleetwood Mac. God, am I showing my age? Wait, 9 Inch Nails. Does that make me a little bit more current, or does that still make me sound old, Colin?
Cardi B.
God, Cardi B. That's the one. Okay.
There you go.
Who's got? Let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah, so I've got some good ones. I wrote them down. A lot of these, as you say, the objections come up again and again and again. That's a new one, actually. So here we go. Here's one that a couple of people have mentioned that we haven't talked about yet. It falls into the category of like, you know what? I'm happy with my system of record. I have somebody who takes care of that for me. We're all set. We're already doing this. All of those kinds of categories of this problem has been solved by someone other than you.
Fantastic. So let's back up for a second, because I have a definite perspective on this. And again, guys, I come back to I know we want to sell. But if someone's making progress, if I'm able to cook the salmon on my grill for my wife and I, it's a problem. And you may have a better grill, but I am not having the struggle that I'm having to be able to move me off the dime. So I was on a coaching call yesterday with someone that had this same exact objection. He goes, yeah, but our product's a no-brainer. It helps these doctors do X. And it's a no-brainer for you, but the doctor has to fire something else to hire you. There's a lot of anxiety about trying something new. Mm-hmm. I got to go fire something else. I got to get rid of something. Maybe the incremental gain is a little bit, but it's just not worth that struggle and anxiety, because all of my resources, which I have limited of, are going to some other places. So what you could try is this, some phraseology. And that's not a problem. My intent certainly isn't to try to move you forward and change what you're having. But would you be open to seeing what else is out there, so that you can see what different perspectives are for at some point in the future, so you can have, the full picture. So it's something you could say along those lines to see if someone's open to just exploring what else is out there in terms of new ideas for helping me kick more ass in some way. Not for now, but at some point in the future. Is that something you'd be open to? And then if they say, no, not really, that's not something I'm interested in, and you haven't been able to ask the best question, which is the propane leak question. A lot of this is salespeople not knowing how to find the problems. We have to find the gap before we can sell. We have to find the propane leak, the thing that's going to prevent me from making progress. Because if I'm making progress with my product, why would I want to switch? I have to understand that. Here's another huge takeaway with this one. This is gold, guys. Get your pens out. It's a coming. Here it comes. You've probably never done the job of the person that you're selling to. So what do you know about what they're going through? How do you get around that? Couple ways. You talk to customers that recently bought using a technique called jobs to be done that allows you to understand all the struggles they're having. You're going to hear some stuff that you had no idea what was going on in their company. Or go there and watch them work, so that you're not just using marketing language and case studies and stuff from customer success, but you're actually immersed in the world of the prospect. I just did this with a customer up the street from me. They were sending manual emails, a cadence, one at a time, creating tasks, following up, going into sent. They were taking 20 steps. I watched them work. So when I went in and showed them the steps on the right with outreach, which was 1 step instead of 30, it was as if, like as Steve Jobs said when he released iTunes on Windows, giving ice water to people in hell. Because I knew the exact steps. Guys, here's the 20 steps you're doing now. And with this new tool, there's only 1 step. I didn't get into what outreach was, what's the functionality. I'm looking for what's possible that the prospect might know about. Here's an interesting thing. The customer thought they were doing the job just fine, but I shined a light because they didn't know. They've been doing it for 15 years. They thought that was just the way it was supposed to be done. So you have to bring a perspective to these things, like I did with the outreach customer, which is now a customer and is an outreach customer, because I shined a light on something and showed them, hey guys, you don't have to be sending emails manually. Here's another approach. Is that something you'd be open to learning more about in terms of this new idea that can save you 2 or 3 hours a week times all these weeks times all these sales reps? And they were like, oh my God, we didn't even know you could even do that. So some of this stuff is about you being very close to your customer and understanding the jobs. On a related note, someone else last week, how do I sell more licenses? They got 5. I need 10. That's the wrong question.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Why would someone kick more ass with 10 licenses? Well, it's better. Why? What job are they not getting done with 5? Well, they share licenses today. I go, sounds great.
Yeah.
Sounds fantastic. You better get to that customer site and watch them work, or call them up and get closer to the customer. Most of these objections that you have are because you're not close enough to the customer and you don't understand their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
What we got next? What we got next?
I want to run by you. So it's along the same line of like, I've gotten this problem taken care of by somebody else already. So so I have a contract in place with another vendor for more than 4 years. And here's how I think you could, first of all, that in my mind, that's like, okay, nurture track. Like what am I going to do? Bust up your contract now? But in case, maybe you could say something like, tell me what you think about this response. Oh, good. I'm glad you've got your needs taken care of for 4 years. Don't have to worry about it at all, right? And maybe you get a chuckle. It's not very funny, but at least it's disarming. That would be my diffuser. And then I would like to ask them something like, well, so if your contract was coming up next month or next quarter, what would you say about me giving you some more information so you have more, so you're not just in the dark on your options? Yeah,
I think guys, this is where the questions come in. So we have to find a gap.
Mm-hmm.
We got to understand something, like fundamentally. I know we're all thinking about sellers. Let's get out of the seller's perspective for a second and think like a buyer. Buyers want to get from point A to point B every day. They have a job they're trying to get done. You have a job you're trying to get done. I'm just trying to get from point A to point B. We have to know our product really well. We have to know the product that they're using really well. And before we actually start with phraseology, let's just have a conversation about how are you helping them get to point A to point B faster? How are you helping them reduce the amount of steps?
Mm-hmm.
How are you helping them in some way? Let's assume for a second, for the purposes of this role play, that you fundamentally know for a fact that they're doing something that's taking 30 steps and you can do it in 1. So you have to ask a question. The question might sound like this. Are you familiar with tools that will allow you to eliminate the 28 steps that you're currently using to be able to send emails? Are you familiar with any of that? I'm assuming you are. What do you mean? This is the what do you mean question. When I walked into the running store, I didn't need sneakers. I just bought new sneakers. But the store associate said, have you ever had your gait checked? What do you mean? Got on the treadmill. I had pronated feet. Next thing I know, I got the wrong sneakers. Next thing I know, I'm spending $250 on new sneakers. This gets back to knowing the jobs your customer's trying to get done, because if they're making progress and you don't understand in your head why you're better for them, there's nothing to overcome because they're making salmon just fine. So I know we want to overcome this for our own pocketbook, but step number 1 in this is there a reason for them to switch?
Mm-hmm.
If so, let's ask that question. Have you considered? Did you know? Are you aware? Right? These are questions that are going to start to get the gap open. And then once the gap's open and they're like, what do you mean? Pronated feet. I don't understand what gap test, propane leak test, manual versus what do you mean that we can eliminate those 25 steps and save what? My current vendor is not doing this. What do you mean? Then we have an opportunity to start to say something like this. Hey, if we were able to show you a way that you wouldn't have to do that, would that be worth your time or taking a look at? Not for now, because we realize you're in a contract, but just so you can see what's out there in terms of new ideas so that when your contract comes up, you have it in your back pocket. And so you know what to look for. So that's something you'd be open to. You'll notice me using that language a lot, open to. It's, again, we want to put the prospect in control.
Mm-hmm.
We want to put the prospect in control of how to answer, because when they feel like they're in control, they're more open to sharing with you. When you take people's control away, it sounds like this. Hey, Colin, we can eat anywhere you want but sushi. Don't touch the wet paint. The first thing you want to do is eat the sushi and touch the wet paint. So these language, would it make sense? Would you be open to? Are all diffusers. But guys, again, it starts with step 1, which is there a gap? And can we ask a question? Can we shine a light on a problem that the prospect didn't know they had?
So let me ask you this, because I feel like I know what you're going to say, but we just got a good question, which is, so your point is like, you have to start by understanding the problem. You have to start by getting closer to your customer. How can you get a customer to open up enough for you to actually see their struggle?
It's a great question. Again, guys, look what we just said there. I love this because we're so involved in what we're trying to get customers to do. That's your job, Mr. or Mrs. whoever asked that question. Your job is to not get someone to open up. Your job is to shine a light. So we have to know how to ask the question. Hey, did you know, have you ever considered, are you aware? Like, this is why I say you have to get closer to the customer. And most people aren't because they've never done the job. So I'm close to the customer up the street. I actually watched the team work. I watched the SDRs sending emails. I watched them going into their sent folder, getting the sent email, forwarding it as touch 2, creating a task for touch 3, multiplied by 15 people. If I ask them, share me with your problems, you know what they're going to say? I got no problems. We're doing just fine. We're booking meetings. When I walked into the running store, got no problems. I got sneakers. When all of a sudden I said, hey, are you aware of a way that we could eliminate all these manual steps? Well, what do you mean? That's just how you do things. Well, would you be open to seeing some other ideas where you can still get your job done, but not have the laborious manual thing, which I'm assuming is mind numbing? Would you be open to seeing that? Not for now, but just so you can see what's out there. Sure. That's exactly how the conversation started with this thing. I didn't ask them, tell me your problems, because why? Colin, I don't have any. My sneakers are fine. My process is fine. I'm showing people what's possible. And that, my friends, is selling. That's what the master salespeople do. They're great light shiners. And then once we shine the light, if there then starts to be a little motivation, then we start to look at the struggleometer, and we're kind of back into that cycle again.
So how about this one then? And this is, again, it came in many forms, but in general, the objection is like, call me back in 6 months. Awesome.
Love that one. So I say, I'm not allowed to. Then it's a little humor. So I'm assuming this is a cold call. So call you back in 6 months. I'd love to. I certainly don't want to waste your time and be that salesperson. A lot of times when people tell me they want me to call them back in 6 months, it's just a really nice way of saying that this isn't really a priority right now. So perfectly okay. You can tell me, you can hang up on me right now, or I can hang up on you. It's your choice. What would you like to do? Well, you know what? You're right. This isn't really a priority. Well, it actually is, but we're in the green zone. You know what? That's fantastic. From time to time, we send out these videos on how to become a better griller. Would you like to be in that track? Oh my God, that sounds amazing. Well, you're going to love these videos. We'll put you in there. And can I send you a book as well? We just wrote one on X. Yeah, sure. Would love it. Okay, bye. Thanks. Because remember, guys, the idea here is to get to the truth. And the truth might be no motivation. So when they say, call me back in 6 months, I might be able to ask that isolate question, which is that really the case? Do they really want me to call them back in 6 months, or are they just trying to get me off the phone? For that one, I'm pretty certain they're just trying to get you off the phone. And you haven't done a good enough job. Again, it gets back, Colin, to the fundamentals of creating the gap or seeing the opportunity of what's possible. The company in Pompano that I mentioned, the sneaker example that I mentioned, the propane example. Those are all questions that the rep asked. You have to ask, hey, before I get off the phone, be happy to call you back in 6 months. Before I get off the phone, are you aware of a propane leak that you might have? Before I get off the phone, I don't suppose if I were to help you automate all those tasks so that you can save 2 hours a week and that your reps could have more phone time, I don't suppose that's something you want to look at right now, right? This can wait. I should just get off the phone, right? So it's another thing you can do, but you have to have an understanding of what better is.
Yeah.
People buy for better. They want to they want to level. Everyone wants to level up. Everyone wants an upgrade. So you have to understand what that statement is so that you can float that out there to get the ears to perk up. And it's tough because you've never done the job. You might not know what those questions are. When someone says 6 months from now, I'm going to have a hypothesis. You know what? You're sending stuff manually. I hear you 6 months. Before I get off the phone, it seems like it's not a time right now. Have you considered this on your radar? Have you ever heard of? Are you aware that before I get off, if we were able to take all that off of the rep's plate and they weren't having to do that at all, that's not something you'd want to look at right now, is it? Well, what do you mean? And then I'm back in it.
And by the way, I love that phrasing of that's not something you'd be interested in. I've had a couple salespeople use that on me recently. And even though I know they're doing it, even though I'm aware of the technique, the like reverse psychology of that, it works for me. It's like, Oh, okay. Well, so based on what you're telling me, you probably wouldn't be interested in XYZ, right? Like that's not interesting to you.
Yeah. Chris Voss of Never Split the Difference fame writes a lot about this, is that sometimes yes can feel like a trap. I'm getting you to say yes to persuade you, but the no feels more comfortable. I use that a lot. A couple of the VPs that I work with tell me that they're bumping into these things, but I don't suppose those are happening over at your organization. Well, Josh, they actually are. And if you deliver that in the right way, you don't use it too much.
Yeah.
It's a very effective technique.
Yeah, agreed. How about this one? Maybe these are linked, maybe they're not. I'd love to hear what you think. So these were two objections from some people who are selling SaaS solutions, and they get stuff like, we're just not prepared to use your solution. The implementation is going to be we can't implement, or I don't think.
Great. Let's do that. Let's do that. Let's
get the adoption.
Let's do that. Yeah, let's do implement.
Cool.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Can you help me understand what is it, in your opinion, it's giving you the perception implementation is going to be a roadblock? And again, isolate question. If implementation wasn't a roadblock, is this something you'd be open to moving forward with this quarter? Yes, it is. It's just implementation. Fantastic. Sounds like it's implementation. What is it about the implementation that's giving you the perception that it's going to be a roadblock? Let's talk about it. Are you open to sharing a little bit with that, what that is? But again, guys, this implementation thing could be not the truth. So we have to ask that isolate question. Implementation aside, if we're able to figure that out, is this something you'd want to move forward with this quarter, or I'm assuming this can wait? And what you'll typically hear when you say that for any of these is, well, actually, this has nothing to do with implementation.
How about this one? I thought this was related. Maybe it isn't. Well, you know what? I think it's great. I just don't think I'll get the adoption I need from the team.
Oh, love that. Love that. It's kind of like I need to talk to the boss, or I don't think I'll get the adoption from the team. Again, let's do this. So Colin, let's just role play that out. Say, I don't think I'll get the adoption from the team, and action.
All right. Josh, I really love the solution, and personally, I'd be chuffed if my whole team would use this all the time, but I just don't think I'll get the adoption to make it worthwhile.
You use the word love. I very rarely hear that. What do you love about it?
Well, it seems like it solves the problem and would make us more efficient.
Yeah, not a problem. Assuming that we were able to figure out this implementation and adoption thing together, and you were feeling very comfortable with it, is this something that you'd want to move forward with this quarter?
Well, and that's your isolate question right there.
That's right.
That's your isolate. So the two answers I'm guessing you hear are either, well, actually,
right.
Or
well, actually, it has nothing to do with implementation at all.
Right.
So let's say in fact it is implementation. You know what, Josh?
Yeah.
It actually is implementation.
Yeah.
So we've kind of gone through, are you the person, the money's right? Yeah. The only thing holding us back is implementation, which, guys, honestly is very rarely the case. But let's assume for the purposes of this role play, it is. Sounds good, Colin. What do you recommend we do to be able to get a smoother implementation?
Well, if you guys could do it for us.
Yeah. So maybe we could work with, and then now we're in the zone now of trying to brainstorm.
Yeah.
So one of the things I've done with implementation is I've done this is, hey, I could take the heavy lifting off you. Let me work with one of your teams to get it going. You don't have to be involved in it. It's not going to take up any of your time. And if we're not able to get it smooth in a month or two, we'll just part ways. That's something to be open to. We'll work with a small part of your team. We won't tackle the whole thing, the whole enchilada at once. And then I'll report back to you once a week on how we're doing, which is essentially what I'm doing with this client up the street. They have 15 people. And I'm like, hey, well, we'll just work with a couple people. We can't roll this out to all 15. What do you recommend we do? And they're like, well, maybe you could work with a smaller team. Like, how many? One or two? Like, people will sometimes solve the problem for you. And in this case, what I did because it was the same thing, implementation, is like, now I'm currently working with 2 reps, and it's an outreach implementation. We're not boiling the ocean. We're just starting small.
Yep. So listen, we're almost at 3:00. I have a few more minutes. Do you have a few more minutes, Josh?
Wait, I got a sales pitch.
Okay.
Here's my sales pitch, guys. Here we go. So this is a response from a customer from an outreach that is in my book. That's a letter and a corresponding graphic. It's actually in my book, The Actual Letter. And this outreach was so good that they actually retweeted it. And the rep saw that they retweeted it, picked up the phone and had a great conversation. There's tons of examples of this in my book called The Badass B2B Growth Guide. It is a book that can help you start more conversations with people you want to get in front of in delightful ways. It's got currently 68 plays and growing. It's a Google Doc, not a book. So I keep adding to it. It's awesome.
It's great.
And here's just some things people have said about it. Here's some other plays, how to send the most phenomenal LinkedIn message ever. The unblurred versions are in the guide. And today, not today, you know what, guys, I'm not going to use it. I just do this. This is on the site. The Know Your Line stuff. So all of the objections you heard today, plus like 25 more with the talk tracks, the guides, the tools, everything. This is the Know Your Lines book. This is going to be included as well. And the book, the investment is this. Here we go. So when this book first came out, it was $47. It had 10 plays. It's been going up and going up. Right now, it sells for $125. You get 68 plays. Once it gets to 70 plays, the price is going up to $197. But if you want both, the limited lifetime access, it's not a recurring fee. I just keep adding stuff and you get it. Lifetime access to the guide and the Know Your Lines course and the book and the tool. It's $125 for all of it. The Know Your Lines course separately sells for $49. So rather than it being $49 plus the $125, you get the bundle today. There is the website. If you go on there and get it, that's how you get it. That's it.
Awesome. Josh, thanks for being here and sharing some of the secrets in the book with us live. I think, I love the workshop. You're teaching me all the time. So having you is a real treat. And thanks everybody for stopping by and giving us some of your time. We'll send out the recording so you can rewatch this and repeat and re-up on some of these objection handling techniques shortly. So keep an eye out for that. And I hope to see you again on another Sales Hacker webinar soon.